Welcome, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to your podcast, Getting Gritty Wit It, with your host, Yariv, Wolok, and my special guest for the evening, Samantha Wismer, who is my first female on the show, I have to say, and I'm pretty excited about that. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Cool.
Good to have you on. And a returning special guest, my friend, and obviously you're both my friends, Frankie Staskel. Good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Yariv, I'm doing well. And yes, I am your only friend here.
Oh, okay. It starts early. All right. I like it. So just for those who are not aware, both Sam and Frankie both write for our site. They're both awesome. Sam is like hardcore Phantoms. If you have been reading any of her stuff, she's like, I don't know, you're publishing an article about like pretty much almost every day at this point about the Phantoms, and she's a lot of the game. So definitely bringing you in for that insight. And if you guys aren't aware, Frankie does a lot of the post-game stuff as well. He usually has his like 3 hits that come after the game, post-game stuff. So I'm excited to get into it, guys. It's been a weird year. Let's put it that way. It's been a year full of, I want to say, primarily disappointments, but there are some highlights, within all of this, and we'll talk about that as well. Before I get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Jim's Steaks on South. Again, they are Flyers fans. They sponsor us. We love working with them. You see them in all of our articles. And again, they're on South Street here in Philadelphia. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you support them, especially in a time of need like COVID. Their business definitely got hit a little bit, but obviously probably not too bad because they're an awesome cheesesteak place. So make sure you check them out. Again, Flyers fans, and make sure to support them. All right, let's get into our first topic. I do want to start off with the not the last Flyers game, but the one before that. We had a couple games against the Penguins, and one big win one way, and then loss the other way. But I want to talk about the 7-2 win. Sam, I'm going to go with you first on this one. I was at that game covering it. The Flyers definitely probably played their best game of the season. It's unfortunately, but it was great to see it against the Penguins. I know at the time you weren't able to watch the entire game. However, because I know you were going through surgery, those who are not aware, send her a little bit of a shout out here. But how did that feel to watch the Flyers kind of rise up, win 7-2, and then we'll talk about Alex Lyon, who I know is let's maybe say your favorite player right now, at least to some degree. He had maybe the save of the year overall, but then maybe the highlight of the year. What did you think about that win?
It was nice too, because I had just gotten home from the hospital and I was half asleep. And I'm getting text messages from everybody like, he just made a save. You guys are up, you're winning. And then I wake up and I'm like, 7-2. And then I'm seeing all the highlights and reruns. And I was like, they brought me home a win.
Yeah, it was. And it's funny because we were talking through text a little bit and you're like, of course I'm missing this one. And then he makes maybe the most ridiculous save I have ever seen. Did you get a chance to kind of I'm sure you probably rewatched that save a few times.
Yes.
Yeah. And how did it feel to actually miss that game for you?
I was heartbroken, but I had to do something better for myself. So.
Word. Yeah, I hear that one. Frankie,
what do you think?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. And I remember you saying that nobody even knew he was going to be in net until right before the game started.
I got both of them wrong. So I showed up to the game late because I was actually covering, because usually we send people to the game. And the lineup sheet for the Flyers, it was wrong. So I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't even realize Lyon was in net till afterwards. And I was like, oh my God. And then, you see that save and it kind of blew me away. It was a ridiculous save.
Yeah. His reflexes were like cat-like. And I was like, oh my God.
It's a nice way to get everybody to notice him. He hasn't had the best of seasons so far. So I think, and not so much because of him, it's not been a good year for most players, but it was nice to see that kind of highlight moment and kind of get that highlight reel moment for his career, because he is, still fighting to be an NHL goaltender, regardless of what most people think. Frankie, what'd you think?
Definitely a couple things. So I'll jump off with the Lion point. So it was really cool because when he took the puck, if you noticed the save, he actually had to lift his leg up too, so the puck didn't hit his leg to bounce back in. So he throws it back, lifts his leg, and then it comes out. It was an unbelievable save. And ironically, I think like two articles before that when I wrote, I think I mentioned that Alex Lyon shouldn't be in the NHL, but
yeah, you did.
Proved me wrong. Sam must have texted him or something and told him. Who knows what happened?
Yeah.
But the win, 7-2, Great 60 minutes of hockey. But what I took from that game is what most people have taken from the entire season. They win a big game, get some momentum, and then they just lose the next game. We've seen it so many times in and out this entire season. We get a huge win, bring the morale, and then the next game, they come out flat. Overall, I mean, it was great. I think G had 3 points that game, which I was excited about. Players were scoring. I haven't scored. But my takeaway from that game was big win. But, I mean, what happens next game? Because it hasn't looked good all year.
For once, I agree with him.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where I don't think anybody expected us to win 7-2 that game, right? The Penguins definitely didn't bring their A game, but it was like the sharpest the Flyers have looked in a while. Like they made the Penguins also look bad. And while I do, let's talk about, I guess, the following game. The following game, the Flyers lose 7-3, right? So they give up 7 goals the other way. But I wouldn't say that score necessarily reflected the way they played. I don't think they necessarily lost like a 7-3 type of game the way the Penguins lost. They more of kind of blew that game later. Like they came in, they were competitive, they fought back a bunch, but they really just kind of, when it really came push coming to shove, they weren't able to kind of do what they haven't been able to do all year, which is really play defense. And Sam, when you see that type of game, the 7-3 game, did you think at some point that, maybe things were turning around when you watched the beginning of that game? Or did you kind of think, maybe it's a little bit more of the same?
I mean, with a game like that and me not watching it and just, going off reruns and just, Chris's videos, we just have momentum one night and then the next night it's just like there's nothing there.
Flat.
Like we don't have the energy. Yeah. And it's been that way since, I want to say since COVID, but I also want to say that it wasn't there prior to COVID either. I think that the point where we just lost it was Lake Tahoe, and nobody wanted to put in any more effort.
Interesting. Frankie, did you want to step in there?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Kind of like going off like what I said. I mean, they played well. Back-to-backs have not been friendly to the Flyers, obviously.
Putting it lightly.
They had a stretch of games, and it had because they're playing a lot of games, so it's a lot. It's a lot of hockey. I mean, it's a lot of hockey that they're playing in a quick time period. So, I mean, they got a big win, and then they come out the next day, and like you said, made a good point because they played. I thought that they played pretty decent. I mean, the outcome of the score didn't reflect of the way they played. We obviously know how the defense is, and it's a shame because they played tight, they played good hockey, and then it just got away.
The first half, like you said, like they kind of came out. They landed flat. It was like they started off with the momentum of the previous game, and then it felt like it all kind of went away. Right?
You get the fight from Farabee. Farabee drops the gloves on that one, which was good.
Let me actually ask you about that. How do you guys feel? And Frankie, you go, and then Sam. How do you guys feel about watching Farabee fight?
It's great because it's one of those because let's see how I can put this without hurting someone's feelings. You really don't know who the leader is on this team anymore. We would have called you as the captain, but they fired the spark to get the spark and to see Joe Farabee be the one to drop the gloves and go against somebody. A nice shot too. I mean, he got Friedman with that good shot and brought him down. I mean, I loved it. I mean, you don't see too much of that anymore. I mean, you have your instigator like Travis Konecny. He would always get in people's heads. I mean, we saw that from last year when he made the funny face against the one guy in the playoffs, which is epic.
We saw the scrap against Sidney Crosby too, the previous game. Right?
Oh, that was great too. Yeah, it's good to see that. But to see somebody actually go and drop the gloves again, and it being Joel Farabee, I mean, how do you not? I mean, he's had a great year. He's had an unbelievable year. And then he picks it up with also now trying to become a leader on the team as a sophomore. It sets up for a bright future.
Sam, what do you think?
It's weird to see players who don't typically fight. With Farabee, even when Lindblom got into that fight, I don't remember what day that was or who we played, but just seeing these players that don't get into fights, I think it says something about the team that they're just trying to spark something, but yeah.
No, I think that's a really good way of putting it, that they're just trying to spark something. my thing is this: is I see people complaining about Farabee, and I get it, right? Because you want to see it done by a guy who that's his role, right? Like you love seeing Sam Morin fight, or even a guy like Jake Voracek, who's a big dude, or a guy like JVR, who I would say almost never fights. But at the same time, we saw Travis Sandheim fight at some point. This team has been pushed around all year, and it really feels like that they really like certain guys. It feels like they've been pushed around physically, emotionally. I think it's a great sign to see guys finally. And if anything, I would have wished we would have seen it earlier, because it's like now they're kind of standing up for themselves, and that's what I think they really need to do. And the thing about Farabee, he is kind of skinny, scrawny, but if you look at his juniors career, he's always been a more scrappy guy. He's never going to be just this pure finesse shooter. And I actually think, and I'll bring up a little detail here that I saw just kind of covering the games on his rookie year. If you notice when he was around the team, prior to even kind of making the big boy squad, he was spending a lot of time with German Rubtsov. And if people know anything about Rubtsov doesn't have the best English. He also is a little bit shy. He's he's a confident kid, but he's not the most outgoing of the group. And I noticed something in particular when I was kind of watching them like hang around each other in the press area. Farabee was like the man, and he carries himself like a captain. And I think what we're seeing is a guy who probably is future captain material. We have Sean Couturier here. He will most likely be captain after Claude Giroux kind of passes on the torch. But at the same time, that caliber of player that he is, the personality and all that, he seems like future captain material to me. Would you guys say that? And maybe Sam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think he definitely could in the future. Like you said, Coots definitely has the in when Giroux passes the torch on. But it'd be nice to see a young guy be captain.
He's got that Jonathan Taves like attitude a little bit that I love, like the confidence, but also like
he's quite the comparison there, Yuri. That's a bold statement here.
I've been comparing him to Jonathan. I've been saying for about 24 months. He's Jonathan Taves meets Simone Gagne to me.
Ooh,
that's how I see him.
A hell of a comparison. I actually kind of did that a lot.
Look at his production. Look at his usage.
I'll tell you, if he could stay on like consistently playing really well like this, not getting those little slumps. I mean, he had a little bit of a slump recently. I think in the sophomore year. I give all the young players the benefit of the doubt. I usually always do. I mean, I give it to Carter Hart all year. Joe Fair, I do not see him probably ever becoming a captain here in Philadelphia. I think that there's probably a few people, like you said, like you mentioned Sean Couturier, ahead of him. I really haven't seen, me personally, as a player and as someone that covers a team like you guys, I haven't seen enough yet to make that kind of statement.
Sure.
So I personally would have to, I happily disagree with Samantha. But I don't say it. I personally don't say it. I mean, you have other players on the team that would definitely fit that role more. But I mean, he comes out again next year and he keeps doing it and starts this role. Why not change my mind? I mean, few players this year have changed my mind, so why not him? But as of right now, seeing what I saw, decent player. Like I'm seeing what I'm liking, what I'm seeing out of him, but no big C for me.
Yeah, I mean, it would be far too early. I think reality is Sean Couturier would be the captain, right? I mean, just de facto, like if we're just making an assumption. But I want to talk about Couturier here for a second because I feel like he's getting let off easy a little bit this year. And not that he's played terribly in any kind of capacity. I actually said most of the veterans, it's like they're given like 80% of what they're usually doing or 70% of what they're usually doing. But Sean Couturier is also not lighting the world on fire defensively. He hasn't fought anybody in particular. And I'm kind of wondering like about why is he getting off the hook? Like I noticed nobody has criticized him at all this year. And I know he won a Selke last year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want him gone by any stretch. I think he is here to stay forever in my mind. But I'm just curious, like, are you guys a little bit disappointed with Sean Couturier's season? And Frankie, maybe you go first on this one.
Okay. Great question, by the way. I know he was hurt at the beginning of the year, so his numbers are going to be down. I think he was out maybe about, which I think a lot of us thought he was actually going to be out a lot longer than what he was.
He might still be injured.
When he was injured. So he was out, I think maybe like 3 weeks. And see, the thing is with Flyers fans, if you score goals, you're loved. Let me look at Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux was never a goal scorer. And people just still won't understand that if he's not scoring 35 goals, then he's the worst player and he should be
He's
gone.
outscoring Couturier.
Exactly. I know. And with Sean Couturier, am I disappointed in his year? I can't say that I am because he's still scoring. He's putting the puck in the net. Mm-hmm. I know he was hurt for a little bit, so I think if he would have played this full 2 weeks, I mean, you can add on probably about another 10 points, and then we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. Defensively, well, I mean, everybody has been awful on defense.
And that's my biggest point, Frankie. That's his biggest role. But please continue.
That's one of the reasons why he won the Selke last year and why he's been a top finalist for the Selke every last 3-4 years. He's definitely slacked in the defense. He's still producing points. So me personally, I'm not exactly disappointed with him because taking for what the team, the whole team has defensively, I mean, it just hasn't been good. Everybody, in my opinion, besides a few players, have had a down year. So I guess it's not that I'm disappointed, but he gets the pass. I guess he's getting the pass.
Okay. Sam, what do you think?
I agree. This is shocking. This is shocking. No, I just think with the weird season, playing so many games, it's so condensed. They're not really getting a break. His injury, defense just being god awful. He kind of, gets the pass because it's not a normal season.
So would you say, so if you're giving him the pass, are you giving it to everybody to some degree?
No, because his performance is actually okay. Everybody else's performance is not awful.
Well, there's some guys who've been, that's what I'm saying, like, for instance, like most people are really hard on Voracek this year. Having said that, he leads the team in points.
Wow, that's wild.
And that's kind of what I want to talk about because I see a lot of people jumping. Like I saw a post, and again, this is not the average person. I just want to quote, I'm not going to pick on the person in particular, but I saw literally buy out Claude Giroux and get that piece of shit Voracek out of town. And I saw that on Facebook. And again, I'm not picking on that person. And again, people get angry. I understand. I'm not here to humiliate anybody. But my thought is why is Couturier, who we can all say is our best player, why is he off the hook where other guys are not? Like for instance, so here let's talk about Lindblom. Lindblom definitely off the hook, right? The guy had cancer last year. Everybody expected him to have a down year, and he's had some decent games within here too. Nolan Patrick missed an entire year due to head injuries. We had, and I know nobody wants me to bring this up, but we had several suicides come up from head injuries back in the day. Everybody wants to pretend like this head injury is not that big of a deal and that wouldn't slow him down for an entire year, which it clearly has. Why are some players getting the benefit of the doubt and not others? Not that you guys are doing that, but I just want to see what your thoughts are. And Frankie, go ahead. You want to step in there?
Yeah, I definitely want to jump on this one because there's actually, and I just thought of it. So I'm going to go back to what you were saying about the Voracek Couturier comparison. So Couturier, it took him a decent amount of time. I mean, I remember when 2-3 years in when he was drafted, people wanted to ship him out. He wasn't producing. He wasn't doing this. It took Sean Couturier, and I think me and you had this discussion on Twitter. 5 years to get where he's at. It took him. He had to develop players. So I think what the point I'm trying to make is people have seen Voracek regress and they've seen Couturier get better. Now I know taking the year into consideration, it's a little bit of an off year with the injury and those kind of things. But for years now, they've seen Voracek kind of regress his game with the goal scoring. And like I said, goal scoring is so big with Flyers fans.
He's never been a goal scorer.
It's unbelievable.
He's never been a goal scorer.
You know what?
He's never scored above 20 goals at any point in his career, ever.
And it's so, and you're absolutely right. But they just want to see goals. So that's my opinion.
I understand.
I personally think that they've seen Voracek over the years just kind of regress and just
from
lose
that 80,
that extra.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but from that 80-point pace or whatever to now being maybe more of a 60-point player. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, it's regression, and they see Couturier again.
This year, he's on a 70-point pace,
which is great, and
remarkable.
And he's still getting crap because it really is.
Consider how they played.
So, he's absolutely, because there's still some studs on this team. Seeing him regress and not being what he used to be all the time, and then seeing Couturier get better, win the Selkie, just continue to play good defense. It's like, get that crap out of here and let's keep going forward with Couturier. Me personally, I think Voracek is probably going the same time that G is. I think he has 3 years left on his deal. Don't quote me on that. 3 or 4 years left on his deal. Drew's up after next season. I think personally that Voracek will probably move on. I've spoken to people that actually think that he's not going to be back into this year. Don't know if they have the firepower yet to fill that void. You don't want to make too many holes and have to fill too many holes in one season. But people have given up. The people are washed their hands with Jake Voracek. We've seen it so many times on Twitter, on social media. He's a guy that I feel like you can rely on. But with that firepower that he's had in the regression, people have given up. So I think that's another reason why the pass is with Coots and not so much Voracek.
Yeah, that's fair. Sam, you want to add?
No, I agree. It's fine.
Well, fair enough. So here's kind of what my takeaway is, though, is when I see kind of an overall regression, I kind of look at the fact that Voracek is consistently in the top 3 in points pretty much every time. He's not a defensive player. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that he doesn't play an amazing two-way game. Like, he had a much better two-way game last year. This year, it's hard to say anybody's had a great defensive game this year, which in my book, that is my biggest problem this year. I don't care about the the goal scoring. This team has not been able to stop a goal pretty much for 95% of the season. We can't hold a lead. We blow every lead. We can't stop anybody. Our PK is essentially useless at this point. And that's kind of why I bring that up. I mean, our PK isn't doing anything, and yet we have very good penalty kill players. Does that frustrate you? I'm sorry, Frankie, you look like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Let him.
I do.
No,
Sandy, I'm sorry. Sandy, do you want to jump in on this one?
I just want to say, Philly fans are ruthless.
True.
And if a certain player or
They're not the only ones.
Yeah. If a certain player or a certain team isn't having a good year, they're going to attack. And they're going to be nasty about it. So that's where everything is coming in from, I believe, for Voracek. Because he's having a good year, but he's not having a good year at the same time.
I wouldn't say he's having a good year. Yeah.
Okay,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yes, Frankie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sorry. I go back to the Voracek thing before you. I know you just mentioned the penalty kill, which I heard a good point about that. Like I said, he leads the team in points, and he still just gets surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah.
But he still just gets over. Like you said, the fans can be tough here, and with the media and just everybody that has their opinion on him. And I think it has a lot to do with the regression over time, over years. If he played well the last, and he probably did. I mean, I made my opinion. I think he absolutely did. But
played very well last year.
Points, he did. The regression in points, the regression in goals, and it's just a constant. Now we see this, and it's like it doesn't mean anything, and it's super unfortunate for players like that. So yeah, I mean that's my point on the Voracek thing. But you had mentioned the penalty kill. And not even that, special teams. And my last article, I saw that they had given up to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had 3 opportunities on the power play, scored 2 goals. That's what we see now. They rarely shut anybody out on the penalty kill. They're always giving up 1, always giving up 2. These guys, 66%. They got on the penalty kill. They gave up 2 out of 3. I think this has a lot to do with the AV system. I think I've spoken to New York Ranger fans. I've spoken to other people that follow the team when he was in New York, and he just did not have a good system. His success rate wasn't too well, and people did not like his.
They went to the finals.
I agree, and I mean, keep in mind, and I always make this point. I love AV. I want him to be here. He's great with us. He's great with the media. He's had some stellar goaltenders. He's
50-50 right now with me.
Okay,
that's how I see AV. He's 50. I loved him last year. This year, I'm as frustrated as everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd love to hear your take on that. But people from New York, they've said they're not crazy about his special team, so to speak.
And they hated the way he treated young players as well. I do remember that.
We're at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, there is no less than us.
I do want to point this out, though. When he was with Vancouver is one of the best teams in the league almost every season. And they also went to the finals. And most coaches don't go to the finals. So it is something I do want to point out perspective to people. It's definitely fair to criticize. Absolutely criticize all of them. Feel free. I mean, you're all welcome to it. And to be honest, this year, they deserve it. Very much so. But at the same time, it is important to look at the full scope of what the person has done and know that really in the NHL, the odds of you being on top all the time is like almost slim to none. And most teams regress from time to time. Like even St. Louis, they won a cup and then didn't have the most amazing season the following year. Sam, do you want to add anything?
Actually, one of my best friends, I actually met through the Phantoms, and she was born and raised in New York, now lives 5 minutes down the street from me. But she even said, she's like, I hate to tell you this, but when AV was the coach, our defense sucked. And I was like,
interesting.
I have no words. Like, I don't know what to say to you, because I don't even know what to say to other fans of the Flyers, that I just don't know what to say, because we're just not there this year.
Yeah. And it's such a drop off from what we saw last year, right? He cut down last year. We dropped down like a full goal just per game, which was extremely impressive. Like last year, we were not this team that we are today, at least playing wise, like on the ice, the results were completely different. And I actually thought AV was going to be fired. Not because I'm like, I want this guy out of town, but I saw the signs of a guy getting fired. I brought it up on this podcast quite a bit. He even complained in the media a little bit too. He stopped that. And when I said online he was being poised, and I got jumped on for it, which I understand why. But my thing was he started going in that direction and then stopped. He started criticizing people and then went, I'm not doing this. Like you never saw him lose his cool on the bench. He's not throwing guys under the bus. And the one thing is he has not lost his captain. He truly believes in Claude Giroux, and I feel like that is the last straw. That if you start criticizing your captain, you're out, most likely at that point, because that means you lost the room completely. And that's my concern with AV, is that did he lose the ability to motivate this team? You see them giving up the first goal almost every game at this point. It's how are they showing up? Sam, what do you think about that? What do you think when you see your team give up the first goal every night? Almost every night at this point.
You really want to know what I say?
Absolutely.
Shocker.
Why do you say shocker?
It's what we've come to expect now because of the season and how it's gone, to be honest.
Bad deal.
That was sarcasm, Yariv.
Oh, thank you. But no. Overall, like it's been bad D all year long. Like team defense. Again, we can pick on Sanheim and Myers. Their numbers stink this year in comparison to last year. I mean, Sanheim's a -19. Nolan Patrick's a -25. Again, I'm criticizing all of them. In my opinion, if this team did not have Claude Giroux this year, we would be at the bottom of the league. And I know most people don't see it that way. I think he is the only thing that has stopped this team from spiraling all the way down. And I don't think people fully recognize that. People in the city like to jump on the best part of the team when things are down, which I can understand. You're going, hey, he's supposed to be the guy who lifts us up. But at the end of the day, there is no team that does it by itself. It just doesn't exist. Even when Connor McDavid, who is a generational player, even when he puts up 100+ points a year, his team still stinks a lot of times. And there's not much you can do about that as one player. It's just not a reality. And even when he was in his prime, when he carried the team, there were still problems with the team, and they weren't able to pull forward when he was putting up 90-some points a year. And him and Voracek were both dominating the league. Still couldn't carry this team into where they needed to go. So what do you guys think was your biggest disappointment of the year at this point? Is it the team D? Is it the coaching? Is it the goaltending? And Frankie, I'll go with you first because you look like you might be ready to answer.
All right. So my biggest disappointment, there was like so many things I'm going to pick up with her.
There's so many of them. So many of them this year.
Oh man, let me think here. I'm gonna say there's a few things. So I'm gonna dive right into it.
Say as many as you want. It's fine.
So we have. I'll start with the defense, and when I mean particular defense, I mean the players you mentioned. You see Myers, you see Sanheim. These guys played pretty well last year. The playoffs. Even Haig was playing well in the playoffs. He was doing his thing, and to see the regression in the way that the defense is. I mean, I've mentioned this a few times in my articles, but I do my.
They haven't been able to stop a thing this year. To your
nothing.
point. Yeah.
So when I do some of my takeaways and things I noticed as a player and as a man in the media, I mean, the communication, and I go back to kind of you mentioned you would see Ghost throw the puck over to his defenseman and he's not even there. There's no communication. It's more than regression. And I'm going to go back to your point on AV. I'm not sure if there's any accountability going on right now. Are people being called out? I mean, a few weeks ago, we heard a couple of players that were calling out the locker room. It wasn't Voracek. It wasn't Giroux. It was guys like Sanheim. It was. I think it was Braun or Sanheim, and I believe that it was Farabee. That goes back to your captaincy. Maybe you are changing my mind here on this podcast.
Change your own.
But I just don't feel there's any accountability with a lot of part of the team, but more or less on the defense because. Do a breakout, get up the ice, get the defenseman, get it up the ice, let your forwards do their job. But now we flip back to the defensive side of it, it's in shambles. I mean, these guys are throwing the puck over to the left side. Nobody's there. You saw Proval. I mean, it was an accident. He can't go to get the puck. He slips down. He falls. It's just there's just so much going on. I don't know if it's lack of hustle. I don't know if no accountability. I mean, the defense has to be the biggest issue. Going a little bit further behind now the defense with the goaltending. I know the defense has been really bad. I am a little disappointed in the way Carter's played this year, and I've given him a pass. I'm still going to give him the pass. It's okay to have, and he's still young, 22, sophomore year. His numbers have doubled, like literally doubled. Like he was giving up maybe 2.32 goals against average last year. I mean, there was a time period where he was literally letting up 5 goals a game. I give a lot of the blame to the defense, but I don't want to say I'm disappointed in him. I'm more or less like concerned. I don't want to say concerned because I know he's going to do just fine.
You were hoping that he would do what he did last year, where he made up for. He was the last line of defense for the mistakes, and it hasn't been there, right?
He's the reason why we even got to the second. He had 2 shutouts.
I would agree.
I think it was back-to-back shutouts last year.
He was huge.
He was unbelievable. He was, and most of the team was. But to see the way the numbers went and he lets up the soft goal, and
it's like looking at a different team from last year. And just to keep in mind, anybody listening, I've said this over and over again. He's here very early, so when you do see a guy like Carter Hart struggle, it is not an indication of his ceiling at all. And goaltending is always made by the team around him. So you hope that he can come in and make all those brilliant saves. But the reality is he's not supposed to be put in that position every single day, especially at his age. I sorry to cut you off there. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Otherwise, we'll go to Sam.
It's a great point that you make. You don't want to see him put in that situation to where he has to make the phenomenal save. And he wouldn't have to. Clean saves. Do what you have to do as a goaltender. I mean, if you're standing on your head making these phenomenal saves, it's literally because you probably have a lack of defense where they're making a play.
Exactly.
That's my biggest disappointment of the year is definitely
Team D. Team D, man. Horrendous. Team D. Yeah, agreed. Sam.
Yeah, defense. And something else that Frankie said was accountability. I don't think there's any accountability in that locker room whatsoever.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that exactly? Can you define that a little bit? Not to throw you under the bus, but I know it's a tough thing to answer because we don't even know because we're not even like allowed in that room.
We're not in the locker room, so we don't really know if they're holding each other accountable for how they're playing. But at what point do you stop blaming the coaching and start holding the players accountable for how they're playing?
Yep. And
I even said that with the Eagles this past year. When do we stop blaming Peterson?
We didn't. They shipped them out.
Yeah, we still don't.
Here's the problem, though, right? And I'm sorry. Did you want to add something else?
No, but that's kind of where I was going with that. Is when do you stop blaming the coaching and start holding the players accountable?
Yeah, I would say everybody's to blame, and it's kind of a trick question I ask you, right? That's why you're like, well, what do we go here? What do we go? Because it's like literally, it's almost that every single aspect of this team has been a disappointment. Like you can't look outside of Joel Farabee. And I think Claude Giroux has actually played pretty well this year. I don't think he's played his best hockey, but like I said, without him, I think this team would have done much worse this year. I think emotionally, he's kind of carried them. He fights through everything. This guy, I don't think he's going anywhere, Frankie. By the way, I think he's retiring here. I do think Voracek will move on at some point, though. To your point, and I don't know if he's gonna. It could be this summer. I don't think he's getting bought out or anything like that. What I do think could happen with somebody like him is just be moved. He could get taken expansion because he could be exposed. And if you look at I keep repeating myself, but if you look at the Shayne Gostisbehere situation, they exposed him through waivers, confidently knowing nobody would take him. So in their mind, they might be like, well, we're going to put Voracek out there because they're not going to take an $8 million contract. They're just not going to do it. They're going to go and they're going to take Ghost for 4.5 or whatever. And that could be a way where maybe I see him moved, or I could see him move for a different veteran, for a different type of older guy who can bring in a different voice in the room. But at a certain point, let me ask you guys something, and then I want to go into Capitals, and then we have some fun stuff to talk about. This episode will end fun, start off terrible, and then end fun. What do you guys think about just kind of clean slate for everybody at this point? Because if the fact that you can literally blame everyone, which outside of a handful of young guys, which I really think it's hard to blame young kids. I mean, do you kind of see it as, I don't even know who to point the finger at a certain point, and maybe it's just best to be like, nobody's fully responsible, or they're all responsible? Is that how you feel? And Sam, you want to go first on that one?
We are going to lose some guys to the expansion draft.
Without a doubt.
Frankie kindly reminds me of that every single week when I go off on rants. And then, we have the draft and we have free agents leaving the team, and it's going to be an interesting offseason. I think we should put in some new veteran players.
It's a must.
Yeah, we have to. We have to do something, or we're never going to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, I would agree. Even if we had an average season this year, slightly better, I think we'd still have to bring in at least a veteran or two to balance stuff out. We lost Niskanen, and clearly that was sorely missed this year. Yeah,
I love
Frankie.
Nitty.
Frankie, what do you think?
So real quick, Sam. So would you say that everybody gets a clean slate? Like, would you just say rough year? Let's get back at it next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I disagree with you.
Jeez,
happily disagree with you.
I like that you set her up for that one.
Absolutely. I was just playing. So, I mean, there are players that. I mean, now that I made my point, now I don't even know what I'm trying to think here. So, I don't think every player can get every part of this organization can get a clean slate. I feel as if we were coming off of a few wins. Chuck Fletcher, should you have brought in maybe a few pieces in that could have boosted this team? There was a lot of talks.
You mean prior to the season?
I mean, even at the trade deadline.
Nothing
we were out. Really done.
We were out of it by then, essentially.
I mean, yeah, we can't. Because we had lost that. We lost, because we got embarrassed by Buffalo 7-2 or 9-0 or whatever the hell that score was.
That was the Rangers.
I watched that game.
Yeah,
that was one of the. Buffalo. That was one of the worst. That 9-0 loss to the Rangers is probably the worst I've seen a Flyers team play in definitely over a decade. It was horrendous.
It was horrendous. But
nightmarish.
We also lost to Buffalo. Like they put up like 6 goals against us at 1.2.
And they stink. Yeah,
they're awful. They have nobody. They even have their main player.
No, well, here's the thing. Oh yeah, at the time they were even missing that. They do have talent. And there's something very wrong in Buffalo. Something's fishy over there.
They play well. I think that they played well together. That's what it was. They just somehow they clicked. When you can play well together. Look at other sports. They have in basketball. Everybody has a big three. Everybody has this. They all have the 3 best players on their squad that are dynamic. Look at the Lakers. Look at their team. They're like in 5th place. You would think that they would win every game. If you can't, I mean, they won a championship last year, and I'll give it to them, of course. But you have to be able to play well together, and that's one of the things that. But I look at teams like Buffalo; they just were able to connect, and they played well, and they beat us. And whether we took a day off or what.
And that's the weird thing, though, Frankie, is that we did that last year with primarily the same roster. That's what I was about to lead into.
This team you plug in a few pieces here and there, one or two, maybe a defenseman, this guy retires, you bring somebody else in. Of course, it's a drop off, but this team has been together for a very long time. There hasn't been too many pieces that have been jumped in that nobody really knew. You have your main players. So to see a clean slate, I'm not giving them a full, all right, shit happens. Let's move on. But there are a few.
Like 50-50 exactly almost, right?
Who the players would be that you would hold accountable? Because I think Drew had a good year. You saw JVR had a really good year. Fairman picked it up. You can't. Yeah. You have to give passes to a few players. All right, I agree with Samantha. Give him a clean slate.
All right, let's move on from that one because again, these are really tough questions. We don't really know the answers to them, and I
win something today.
Yeah, well, look, I see a lot of blow up the team stuff. It's funny. I see a lot of blow up the team stuff online, and look, people can get upset. I notice a lot of people have been getting upset on me on Twitter, which is pretty normal. And honestly, some of it's fine. Like, that doesn't bother me. But at the same time, you're not blowing up the team. Like, you just went through a rebuild. So that's not really an option. You can make some strategic moves. You can try to make a big move, right? I mean, bringing in Chris Pronger into this organization changed things a lot. If we can make another move like that, bringing in a guy who's really can, I'm talking about a guy who really can impact your locker room. I mean, there's Shea Weber out there, right? He's not available. Ryan Suter. Right, Dougie Hamilton potentially. I don't know if he's that type of guy personality wise. I actually think a lot of people who think he will be that are going to be the ones who hate him because this is the same guy who got traded over and over again for not being that guy. Talented player. He's not going to speak up in your locker room. He's a loner, actually, for the most part. So you're not actually getting that guy if you think that you are. But he is very talented. So there is something important. Having said that, let's talk about next game for a little bit. Because this is kind of where things are going to get fun. And then I want to start talking about the younger players as we move to the end of the episode. So there was a lot of news. A lot of exciting news that we're not part of, kind of to some degree. Well, we're kind of part of it, but it's all not fun for us. Shayne Gostisbehere gets a 2-game suspension for his hit on Friedman. I'm going to say my opinion. I want to hear both of your opinions, and then I want to go into the Rangers a little bit and the Rangers and the Capitals a little bit because we're going to be playing the Capitals. I don't think Ghost deserved 2 games on that one. I could see 1 game. I thought primarily it was going to be a fine. I think it was stupid of Ghost to push a player at the end of the game up against the boards, and I think that's why he got it, because it was completely unnecessary, and I think that is essentially why they went after him. Having said that, I think 2 games is excessive. I do think Friedman, I don't know if he dove a little bit, but he went down a little easy and he was fine. And that's why it kind of bothered me that he got 2 games. I don't think he necessarily deserved 2 games. I think maybe a serious penalty for the game and then, give him a $10,000 fine, something like that. Maybe 1 game, but I thought that was excessive. What do you guys think about that one? Then I want to go into Tom Wilson because I'm sure both of you want to talk about that.
I think it was quite excessive. Not that I'm sticking up for any players, but, 2-game suspension. The Flyers player that had his hearing today got a 1-game suspension for high sticking. Was it necessary that
Rangers player, Bushnevich, you meant. Sorry, go ahead.
Was it necessary for Ghost to do it? No, absolutely not. And I don't think he should have. But, watching Friedman as long as I did, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Frankie, go for it.
I'll pick up kind of where she went. 2 games, a little excessive. It didn't have to do it. He scored a goal. Skate away, man. I mean, you're a professional player. You don't have to hit him. I mean, it's frustration. Right. I get it. A tough year. Unfortunately, he was made the example out of a play that he probably shouldn't have got suspended for. It was immediate. You know what I mean? Yeah. You just saw what just happened.
That's a perfect point. And I don't want to segue into Tom Wilson off your point, but please finish.
Absolutely. So he was made the example, and it's unfortunate because it wasn't that crucial of a harsh of a penalty.
It wasn't necessary. It wasn't hard. And yet they still punished him.
So we got 2 games. They had to do something. They had to say, "Oh no, we're serious here. Look, Ghost just Shayne Gostisbehere from the Philadelphia Flyers just cross-checked Mark Friedman into the boards. We're giving them 2 games. We're doing a great job up here." Nah, dude, he made an example out of a player that didn't deserve 2 games. They messed up, man. The league messed up without not taking care of business with Tom Wilson. And you can take it forward.
No, let me start it off, and then I definitely want to hear both of your opinions on this. It's very clear that the league messed up. They can say otherwise, but this drama was created by them to some degree. We saw a general manager and a president get fired of their team after, in my opinion, a stupid comment. You should never be calling for anybody in the NHL to get fired. That's why they lost their jobs. And I would bet that ownership told them not to do it, and that they were already thinking about replacing them. And as soon as they did that, there goes the axe. So that is unfortunate and ugly drama for the NHL. They didn't do anything about Tom Wilson, which, again, my opinion is they came at Wilson, he finished it, and that's why he didn't get it. And a guy like George Peros is going to side on that because, again, they went after Wilson, where in Ghost's case, nobody was going after Ghost. He did that on his own, and that's why they got the 2 games. But I don't agree with 2 games. I think that was severe. I think the fact they didn't make an example of Wilson to some degree led to the outrageous example, which I loved, by the way. I love that stuff. So
it's great.
I don't disagree with it. It reminds me of my childhood watching hockey. But that's why all of that happened, because when players feel that that safety or the refs aren't taking care of what needs to be taken care of, they take things into their own hands. And that's what we watch an example of. And that happened because of the NHL. And they can complain, they can be upset about all that, but that is a result of your lack of leadership in that situation. The very least you should have known that situation with Tom Wilson losing Panarin for the year will set off the New York Rangers. Having said that, maybe they wanted it to. It was very entertaining for a lot of people, and everybody is talking about it. So I don't think Wilson should have been completely let off. Having said that, I'll be honest with you, I would love Tom Wilson on this team. I have zero issues with his game, and I would trade a pretty significant package to get him here if I had the option to get him here, because that's the type of guy you don't want to play against, but you definitely want in your team.
Like Sean Avery, man. I hated playing against Sean Avery, but it was the guy that everybody wanted.
Agreed, but he's double the play. I mean, you got to realize this guy is a 20-goal scorer. He is the strongest man in the league. It's Ryan Reeves with skill. I mean,
yes,
good
comparison there.
You don't find these combinations. Yes, he comes with baggage. So did Guis. You know what I mean? There are issues with guys who play like this. So having said that, Bushnevich also gets a penalty. That actually bothered me the most, is that Bushnevich is the one who suffered. Then when he when he did something the following game, they give him a game. But then the guy who attacked him gets almost nothing and pushes his head in the ice. It's just like at a certain point, you're almost asking for players to get upset, where it seems to me like the next thing Tom Wilson will do, even if it's not that bad, he's going to get a game. That's the way it seems like to me, and it kind of set up that scenario. All right. Now I want to hear what both of you have to say. Sam, since you're the quieter one, I want you to go first.
Quieter one? I talk all the time. Anyway.
In comparison to him.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that he should have had just gotten a fine.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that his punishment should have been more severe than it did, because then you have Ghost the next day who gets a 2-game suspension, which, granted, yes, it was needed, but it was severe.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Are you saying that Ghost should have been suspended?
No, I'm saying because of what he did, is that he shouldn't have gotten a 2-game suspension.
Okay.
I'm with Yariv. He should have at least just gotten a fine, or at least a 1 game, but 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just because we're the Philadelphia Flyers, but and then you have the Rangers player. Am I right? The Rangers player today?
Yes.
Okay. Getting a 1-game suspension for high sticking. When are we going to stop giving Wilson a break? Because that's all he's getting is slapped on the wrist right now. Oh, I'm sorry. He was suspended for 10 games earlier this season. Let me clear myself up there.
That's a long time to do.
Makes me mad.
That's a long time. 10 games is a long time to get suspended. I mean, he's a repeat offender. He's definitely, I mean, his name is in the black book. I mean, besides his talent, because his talent's there. I mean, it's definitely there. But for doing this in the sport of hockey, and I played 18 years in hockey, I played a long time. I've seen a lot of, not something like this, but I mean, you go back to when Todd Bertuzzi had knocked down Matt Moore some time ago, and that was bad. That was tragic.
That was the back of the head hit you're talking about. The punch in the back of the head.
The punch in the side, and then the face plant into the ice.
Right.
It was,
good call.
I mean, you almost have to think about legal charges on that point. And the small fact that
there were legal charges
on this one. I believe Todd Bertuzzi was suspended the entire year of the lockout, and he came back the following year.
Again, and I think that's a great point, Frankie, and that's where I want to talk about. That's why Ghost got a suspension, because it's a player skating away. He's not even acknowledging you for any kind of physical contact, where if you look at Panarin went at Wilson. And again, I'm not saying he's dumb to go at him, but Wilson is going to finish that.
Uh-huh.
And go ahead, please. No, please.
You have somebody, and anybody that's been watching hockey a long time, Paros is a fighter. He was one of the toughest SOBs in the league.
And a Harvard grad, so people should remember that. He's not like a dumb fighter in any kind of way.
No, not at all. Man. I mean, and he had the great stash. He was just all-time hockey, dude. So you had guys like him, Colton Orr, Bashir was going, George Laraque was still playing at that time. You had great fighters. When you're that role, besides our good friend Riley Cote, because he kind of switched off into another role today in today's world, and he's doing fantastic, by the way. But you have guys like that will always probably side with the intimidator, the fighter.
George Laraque did not. I mean, actually, he had a public tweet. He said he actually did not agree with Wilson at all. He thought the fine should have been hard. And he said, I'll go in there and beat up Wilson.
I love that. Yeah, sign me for a day contract. But George, I mean, we have to look at it for him because he's the one that's making the call. Bottom line is, I mean, personally, I probably would have suspended Wilson the rest of the year. Just because of the effect. If you can't, you pushed his head into the ice and then you threw a punch. Panarin jumped on his back.
Crosby did that. Crosby did that to TK. Didn't even get a penalty.
It's another one of these big question marks. Like I said, the next person that was going to get the flag was going to get it. And it just so happened that it was Ghost. Could you imagine if Crosby had gotten suspended for 2 games?
Oh, God.
Never. And it's unfortunate because you have to be. We go back to with the Flyers defense and this team. You have to be held accountable for your actions. You can't hold somebody accountable and then let somebody else get a pass.
And that's
no favoritism in the sport of hockey.
Well, and that's where I agree with you. That's why I said that the NHL is responsible for what happened on the ice. Because there's a clear indication that the players no longer trusted them to make the right decision. And that's why that brawl happened. And then another
awesome, by the way.
Yeah, well, and at a certain point, I like it. It reminds me of kind of what we used to. I mean, there were times where you watch the Flyers, there would be an entire bench brawl back in the
Ottawa, 2000s. The Ottawa fight.
Everybody remembers that fight. There was nobody left on the bench. There was 5 dudes left on the bench on both teams. It was hilarious.
Not to interrupt you.
No, please.
But I remember my dad always whenever I talk to him, I'm like, yeah, there was a fight at the Phantoms game, and then you got fights going on at the Flyers game. He's like, Sam, those fights are nothing compared to what they were in the 70s. He's like, there's a reason you're called the Broad Street Bullies.
Yes. And if you actually look at that, if you touched Bobby Clark back in the day, we had about 5-6 guys who would literally just beat the snot out of you if you touched him. If TK hit Bobby Clark the way that he hit Crosby, he would have had a big guy grab him, wrestle him by the neck, and just punch him in the face 5 times. That's really what they did immediately.
It did. I mean, go right off Yuri's point that when they had faced the Soviets, they came to Philly and they were beating them up.
They wanted to quit. They wanted to quit. And Ed Snyder said he went to them and said, "If you guys don't finish this game, I'm not paying you."
yeah. And they came back on and got their ass.
And then lost.
I literally would have been like, all right, guys, let's go. I need aid.
The best part about that is that Russian Red Army team, that USSR team, they beat the snot out of the NHL All-Stars right before that.
All-Stars. Mm-hmm.
And then they came to play the Flyers. And it was a whole different animal. And one of the biggest problems this year was we got physically intimidated this year. And I do want to point out that is a youth problem. And let's talk about it because we're playing the Capitals tomorrow as we're recording. Actually, this will be the day of. People are watching it. So tonight, if you're watching it the day of. So on Friday, the 7th of May. I imagine Sam Morin will be in the lineup. I don't know if Tom Wilson is going to be playing. What?
I think it's already been said Morin's
in. Yeah. I think he's playing with Cam York, which is kind of cool. And I do want to talk about him as well. And we'll talk about young guys right after this. I don't think that the Flyers are going to go in this for some kind of physical bout. I don't think they're involved in it at all. But what do you guys think about playing the Capitals? Sam, I'll go with you first. Do you feel like there's anything exciting about this game? Do you feel like maybe the Flyers will only get physical just to show that they're around? You see guys dropping gloves. Like maybe it turns into that anyway.
Oh God. I've been to a Capitals Flyers game in person this year and it wasn't pretty. I don't even know what to look for tomorrow night because the Capitals just beat the snot out of us every time we play them. Yeah.
We have not been a good team this year.
No.
Frankie?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Washington's a physical team. We have Wilson. I mean, even Alex.
Still have Chara.
They still have Chara. They have guys that are physical. And we have guys on our team that are lacking that right now. But go back to what you said. You don't want to go into next year just being the pushover team. Absolutely if we would have beaten Pittsburgh after we beat them 7-2, we would have knocked their chances down to getting the number one. They probably would have had no shot of getting number one. We're playing spoiler right now, not so much against Washington, but show something. Get physical. Right now, the end of the year is the time where you do start getting physical.
Yeah, I think we might see
it. I think that you're going to see a physical game tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm not going to give my prediction because I don't think we're there yet. I do see a physical game. I do see some. I mean, look at Tom Wilson's the kind of player. Just because he thinks that he might be on the radar or somebody's on the radar. Oh boy, I know he has an undisclosed upper body injury. We'll see what happens. But if he does play, he's not the kind of player that's going to not go after somebody to back off a little bit because of what happened. He's still going to play his game. And especially knowing that he didn't get in trouble, he's not thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to get in trouble the second time. He's still going to play his game. He's going to go out there. He's going to be physical. We're going to probably be a little more physical, especially with Sam Morin in the lineup. I'm expecting a good physical game tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right with that one. I think we're going to be – I think this might actually spark something that this sport thoroughly needs. And I know that it might upset people because times have changed a lot, right? It's not even socially, right? Like our country, just in general, not just obviously Canada too, but we're just a less aggressive culture than we were at the time that hockey was kind of, all these large fights would happen. But I think hockey kind of needs a little bit. And I think the Flyers might ride off of this a little bit. I mean, you saw other guys fight. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if more guys around the league just start fighting all of a sudden because of this. Because all of a sudden you think, is the NHL actually doing a good enough job policing this? And then again, how many ghost calls did we see? And I'm not talking about ghost specifically. I mean, like calls where you're like, why did the Flyers get a penalty? I mean, we saw it the other day, goaltender interference. I was at that game. That was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. And again, I don't harp too much on refs. I don't really care that much afterwards. But that call was ridiculous. There was no goaltender interference there at all. And I started looking at stuff like this, and it's like this team is very frustrated walking into a team that just had one of those nights. Like, I could see the Flyers being like, you know what, we're going to take it out on you guys too. Like, we're just going to prove that we're not pushovers. And you pissed off the last team. You're going to piss us off tonight anyway. Like, if Wilson's in the lineup, I could see it. Sam, you want to say something?
And honestly, when Frankie had said it and you had just said it now, that's how we're looked at right now. We're looked at as the pushover team that we don't know how to do anything right.
Right. And quite frankly, we played that way. So we deserve it.
We deserve to be looked at that way. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, everybody who jumps on me, online, it's like, oh, the Flyers stink. You can say it all you want. I'm still not going to tell you that you need to blow up the team and that every player stinks. I think it's the team we are today. And it can easily be resolved. Not easily, but it can definitely be resolved by next year, just like we didn't expect them to be at the bottom. I would love to see the Flyers go out there and fight. I would love it. Why not? What do you have to lose? Outside of like, I don't want to see him make it hurt, be honest with you. Like a little bit, you know? Not like, I don't want to see head injuries. And that includes guys on the Capitals. Like, I don't want to see anybody like lose their career, nothing like that. But to scrap, you know what I mean? It's necessary.
I remember, I think it was 2018. I think. I don't want to see Sam Marin ragdoll somebody on the ice because I was at that game.
Oh, wait, on the Phantoms. Oh, that was great.
He's done that multiple times.
He's a big dude. He's a big dude.
6'6". He's a
6'7".
6'5".
6'7".
6'7".
Yeah, and he just ragdolled Mike Aviani on that ice like he was just a taker. And I was just like, oh my god.
The thing about Sam is that he is the biggest sweetheart, and then when you get him on the ice, he will kill you. And I love that about him because it means he's a great teammate. And a lot of people think they'll move on from him. I don't think so. I don't think the Flyers are interested in moving on from anybody. I think that's our frustration coming out. And I think you can see that in Fletcher's response to, are you firing AV? No. He's letting us all know he is not going to do what we want him to do. And I'm not one of those people. That's why I get shit on so much on Twitter right now. I don't want to see them move on from Sam Warren. I don't want to see guys thrown away because I think there's a lot of potential here to turn this around. But we need to add. We need to add here.
Definitely.
That's a great point that you make because this team is so full of talent, which is one of the biggest overall disappointments because this team is so talented and it goes back to being like a pushover. We're at the stage now where we were such a talented team and the way that we should have played and the way that we are playing, teams are able to take advantage of that. Look at Buffalo and throw it in our face. So right now is the time to, you know what, we're not playing the way we should be playing. So you know what, we're going to go out there and we're going to lay the smack down on you.
I love that. So let's talk about some positive stuff for tomorrow. There is big, exciting news, and this is a guy that I've been talking about for a while. I've been saying it just like I said about Farabee, that I believe he will make the team out of camp. I think that U.S. Development program is extremely special, and we see what Farabee is. I think Cam York is probably, I don't know if they're going to keep him up here for the rest of the year, but next season I do expect him to make it out of camp. I think they probably are penciling him in to some degree. Cam York's going to make his NHL debut officially alongside probably Morin, and then he's going to be playing the second power play unit, which again, if you're looking at that, the coach wouldn't be putting him there by accident. That is what they're considering using him for next season, in my opinion. I watched Scott Gordon talk about him last night after his game, and again, the kid is every single game in the AHL. He's clearly too good for the AHL already.
He should not be there. I'm sorry.
That's exactly. I've been saying it for a while. He's definitely a pro player.
His first game.
Go ahead.
His first game, he definitely needed to be there just to get used to the speed of the AHL.
Absolutely.
Now he's going to be up with the NHL, and he's going to have to get used to that. And I don't want people to expect too much from him. Because of that reason. 14, 15 minutes a night. Like he's not going to come in here. He doesn't need to come in here and be our number one defenseman. I do not expect that. And actually, I'd rather him be in the AHL the rest of this season to learn the game, like you're saying. But the reality is he's going to have an off season. And people should also know he's 6 months behind most players. He's young for his age group. So a lot of people forget that. And for a defenseman, what he's doing is extremely impressive. I do expect him to walk in. I like what you said, though, Sam. Frank, do you want to add something about York as well?
Yeah, Cam York. Sam, you were at his first game. Did you ask him a question, but your phone was on mute? Was that the first game? Anyway, me personally, Cam York, solid player, good player. I really like him. I'm excited for him to come up. But I also go back now. I know it's new coaching. I also go back to the fact that people also said the same thing about Travis Konecny. Bring him up, bring him up, bring him up, bring him up, and they didn't bring him up.
You mean Sanheim?
No, I'm actually going with TK. TK was in camp pretty often, and they would just send him back down, and he looked like he was ready to come up. People were saying Cam York is ready to come up.
I think you might be thinking of it wrong because TK made it out of camp his second year.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. I thought it was a little longer, maybe another year or two. But go back to what you said.
To your point, the first year he had a really good preseason, but he didn't make the team. Now, with that being said, I think about Cam York. There are question marks about whose spot will he take? Who's going to be going? Who goes? Who goes? Right? Yeah.
Who goes? I mean, you gave a few people a contract. I think they've been flip flopping a lot. Goss is probably, who knows what's going on with him. But I don't. Here's bold statement right here. I don't think he starts out on the Flyers roster next season.
That's fair.
I do think he makes his way in here at some point. He'll probably have a good, strong camp. I'm excited to see. I'm very excited to see him tomorrow. He is a good player. He's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, he's a very exciting player to watch. It's exciting to see these players start to pop up now. But I don't think he'll make the team next year. I think he will be up again. I'm not actually upset about that. I like the time people to be able to stay down and develop. But tomorrow night, I mean, we've got to see Wade Allison come up. He's actually played pretty damn well.
He's in it.
And you've gotten to see, now you're going to see Cam York come up, and we'll see what he does. I'm excited to see him tomorrow, definitely.
It's awesome. Sam, you want to add anything else about York?
Yes, Frankie. Thank you for pointing out my mute catastrophe.
It was your big moment.
Okay,
and York's like, hey, I think your phone's on mute.
No, all he was like, it was like for about 10 seconds. He's like, I think you're muted. And I was just like, I was mortified.
Oh, I was muted. I was muted the whole time. Sorry.
Is there anything you want to add about York's?
No, I'm very excited to see him play tomorrow night. Anytime any of these guys get brought up, I feel like a proud mama bear because, I watch them, and if anybody tries to hurt him, I will drive down to Philadelphia in 90 minutes.
It's funny. So the thing with York is you got to look at the way Team USA won, right? They won a defensive game led by him. He is slightly undersized, but his game is already NHL ready. Like if they hold him back, it's really because of physicality. We saw that a little bit with Farabee too, right? They started him in there, but then they pulled him up after like 3 games. They really just had him in there to make sure that he wasn't just fooling people, but he was too good for the Phantoms immediately. That program, that U.S. program, they develop NHL players like right out of 18. Trevor Zegras, even John Beecher. You're talking about Oliver Wahlstrom, obviously Jack Hughes, who also, just like Cam York, is 6 months behind in age group. You can see it took Hughes a little bit longer, but then obviously this year he's like their best player. And I do expect York to come in. I don't want him playing a major role for the D. And somebody pointed this out to me, and I completely agree with them. Like Tyson Forrester is killing it right now, killing it for the Phantoms. I think he has 10 goals in like 21 games or something like that. It's ridiculous for a kid that young, especially at the AHL level. But I do think with the changes coming this offseason, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Igor Zamula is very close to NHL ready. He's a little more slight of frame. Like I think York is actually more physically ready. I think York is I don't want to say he's on Provorov's level, but the maturity level is beyond what Sanheim was when he showed up here. This is a guy who, as far as mistake-free hockey goes, he already has it. I think he's going to make mistakes, but he's maturity level already there. I don't think he was captain by accident. I do think he will probably if he doesn't make it right out of camp, I think he'll be with the team 80% of the year. And I think they're penciling him into that. But to both of your points, we have to see who leaves in the offseason, right? We talked about expansion. We don't know exactly what's going to happen at this point. So,
just to go off Tyson's stats here, he's played 21 games, 10 goals, 5 assists, 15 points.
Yeah,
well, that's good.
And really very nice. Yeah, he's clearly a sniper. He's clearly a goal scorer.
Oh yeah, I watch him put those pucks in there, and I'm just like, this kid.
Yeah,
he needs to be another year.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody should be expecting him to come into the NHL and start lighting it up. And I think the Flyers are way too deep at forward. There has to be movement this offseason, regardless of what anybody thinks. Okay, we talked about Wade Allison. So Wade Allison, what does that mean for Nicolas Aube-Kubel? Like Wade Allison's already coming in there and stealing minutes from him. We just signed Jackson Cates. That doesn't include all the other young guys. Let's just bring this up as well because I forgot to bring it up. Ali Lishkill and Elliot Denoyer both signed an ELC as well. Lishkill is already of age to play in the AHL. He's already been really good in the SHL. He's going to come over here. That's another young kid. They keep bringing these guys we drafted in here. At a certain point, you have to start pushing some people out. And that's where a guy like JVR, again, had a rebound year. I think the Flyers will try to move him. I think that's actually one of the biggest guys we're going to try to move, not because he has no value at this point, but because our wing is too deep where we really lack at D, and we really need a veteran defenseman. So I would not be surprised if the Flyers maybe put together a nice package deal to try to get one that hopefully is a game changer. And I think that will make most fans happy. You don't need to blow the team up, but you do need to make a significant move to shake up the locker room. And I don't mean remove people from it, but just like when Niskanen showed up and brought everybody up a little bit, we need to do that again. And if we can get somebody even better than Niskanen, that is exactly what this team needs. So I would love to see something like that. And with somebody like York being ready, you can maybe move on from a defenseman if you need to. I'm not saying they will, but again, you look at the amount of good young players on this team, you have the ability to take a risk and make a move that'll take you out of this middle tier that we're circling at and move us into a more mature hockey club. Sam, do you agree with that? Do you see anything like that happening?
I was just gonna not try to interrupt you.
No, it's cool.
With them bringing Wade Allison up and bringing Tanner Lazinski up, whose season unfortunately ended early. Those guys were physically ready.
Yes.
They had no business being in the AHL, to be honest. Lazinski, he had a little bit of a slow start because of the core injury that he had, and he had surgery for that. Right. And then,
for now both of them.
Yeah. Now with his torn hip labrum. So if it wasn't for the injuries, I think we would have seen them both up there a lot sooner because they're too talented to be with the Phantoms.
I agree. And they're already of age, right? You got guys who are 20. I think both of them were, I think Lazinski is 22 or 23?
23.
He's 23, right? Yeah. So they're both 23. They're of age. And Allison, I think, would have probably even be a better player right now if he didn't lose so much time to injury as well. Mm-hmm. Frankie, what do you think?
I definitely agree. I'm going to go off of kind of what you mentioned about the package thing. I would have traded probably. I would have probably moved JVR at the trade deadline, and people thought a big question mark, like why? He was one of our best players. Like what you had mentioned, we were pretty much kind of out of it. His stock was higher. I mean, in my opinion.
And I don't mean to cut you off. The only reason I think that we can't do that this year, you got a flat cap. You have teams losing a bunch of money. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. To your point, Frankie. Yeah, I don't think they're married to him. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you're absolutely right. You try and move players that when their stock was a little higher, and like I said, we're so deep at forward. Move some of these players, package something nice, and bring somebody in that where you really need the help. I mean, this team is going to look a lot different in probably about two years.
Sure.
I wouldn't even go back to your point. Wouldn't say too much after this season going into next few faces here and there, but the year after, this team is going to look different.
You might
be young, quick, fast, exciting, lots of goals. Carter Hart's probably going to be in like his fourth year. This team is going to be a lot more really, really fun to watch. Different kind of hockey. Who knows who the coach? Who knows if AV's style will even fit this team?
I'll tell you this: the average coach lifespan is not really above 3 years.
That's wild to say because you look at some coaches that have been. I mean, look. With the team, of course. JQ that was with Chicago for so long. I mean, who was our longest tenure coach? Was it Hitchcock?
Dave Hexdall.
Was it really? Oh, God.
I think he had 5 years here, right?
Wow, he had 5 years. That's sad. No offense, Dave. You're a good guy.
Well, here's the thing. We knock Hexdall, and again, I think he was a rookie coach, which is a problem. But remember, everybody called this is what the city does. And people are jumping on me for it. I don't care. I've been watching this team for a long time. I only have this publication now for about 2 years, but I have been like this my whole life. I have watched players and teams and coaches be thrown away. I watched Laviolette told that he was the problem and then not be the problem. I watched Craig Berube told he was a problem and then go win a championship. I was told that Braden Shen wasn't worth anything, and I watched him get me Farabee and Frost and go win a championship. I watched Jeff Carter and Mike Richards be the problem and then go win a championship. I've watched multiple. I watched Dave Hexdall, who's now on Toronto's team, who's one of the best teams in the league this year, right? Potentially going to win a championship. You watch guys who get thrown aside. We watch Ron. This is one of the things I brought it up a ton. This drove me absolutely nuts. Ron Hexdall gets fired from the Flyers. All of a sudden, all these terrible stories about Ron Hexdall being a tyrant and how he's overly controlling and all this blah, blah, blah. I'm going, this guy has played here for 20 some years, then is a GM here, assistant GM, then head GM. And now you find out he's a tyrant. And then he goes to the Penguins and they go from being middle of the road to being the best team in the division. I thought he was a tyrant.
It was the perfect fit. Pittsburgh was the perfect. Well, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Pittsburgh was probably the perfect place for him to go. Maybe Buffalo because you have a little bit more time. But they're going to start losing their big-time players soon. And they're going to probably be patient. They're going to draft well. They're going to bring in the right people. And in 3-4 years, it's going to be Pittsburgh
Look, I think the reality is, and this is what I try to point out to people because people like to say this person stinks, this person's an idiot and all that. The reality is that this is the toughest league in the world. It is a game of inches. You make mistakes, you're out. You can be a great coach and get fired. It happens all the time. In fact, I would argue expect to get fired. Like my dream job would be GM of the Flyers. I know if I would ever, again, I don't think it's going to happen, but if I would ever get that job, I know going into it, I'm going to get fired from this job. You're going to get fired. Somebody's going to come in and beat you, and you're going to lose. And I think we play this fight. Like even Knobloch beat us 9-0. We fired him. It's like they're not idiots, and they're not incompetent, and they're not POSs. This isn't real. It's just not real. It is a very, very difficult sport to be highly competitive in. And not that you guys are saying this, but it is a game of inches. And like you said, we have enough talent. We just need to put the right mix together. Last year, how is it? What is it? Nate Thompson, Derek Grant, Pitlick, Tyler Pitlick. Niskanen was really a great player, but primarily we just need some more voices in that room. Right? A little more toughness.
I love Peter Laviolette. I mean, I loved him. You go back to that Pittsburgh Flyers playoff.
He's been fired how many times?
Oh man, too many. And he's still in the league. They're still in the league for a reason. Somebody
he's in first place.
Something. Somebody is seeing something that you're missing. Like we let him go. It's like we just got the gold mine. Peter Laviolette is a tough coach. I love him. I mean, you got to see a lot of him going back to when the Flyers played the Rangers in the outdoor game, the behind the scenes. You got to really see what he was like. Talk about fire under an ass.
Yeah.
That was Peter Laviolette.
Yeah, I love that. All right. We got to wrap it up soon. Anything you want to leave us off with, Sam? We kind of talked real quick there. Anything you want to add?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So let me say this. We're going into this game. It's a tough year. I get why everybody's frustrated. Honestly, venting and shitting on the players is totally warranted. They deserve it. They did not play well this year. There are games that we have watched this year where they have played some of the worst hockey I've ever seen. And it's not entertaining and it's not fun. And the fans deserve better. No doubt about it. Having said that, we can get better out of it. We can get more out of them. And a lot of these guys are young. And I say it all the time. People can be upset at me. But life is always, always a series of up and downs. Always. Like you can see Laviolette get fired and then go to first place. You can see him get fired and then win a championship. We see it all the time. Craig Berube gets fired and then goes and wins a championship. Ryan O'Reilly gets traded as the problem from the Sabres. Then goes win a championship as the MVP. Like, we have to recognize that all of these guys are professionals. It happens. It happens to everybody. If they're young, they're more likely to struggle. If they're young, they're more likely to get intimidated. They're more likely to spiral. So we need to bring in veterans. Anything you guys want to add to that? And then we'll wrap this up.
I have nothing I want to add, but I know.
Okay.
I got to take away.
Yeah, go for it.
Flyers win 2 out of the 3 next games. That's my takeaway.
And
Flyers
bold statement.
Bold statement of the pod tonight. Flyers win 2 out of 3 games.
How do you think they're going to do against the Caps?
Oh, that's a good one. I think they win.
I love that. Sam?
Oh, wait, is Alex Lyon in that?
No, Elliot.
Elliot.
No, he will be in net this weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, on Saturday. He'll be in net.
Good.
So, he's fine. We'll be fine.
Like I said, 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. Nice. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you again to Jim Steaks on South for sponsoring us. Again, go check them out on South Street. You won't find better cheesesteaks in Philly. You won't really find better cheesesteaks in the area. Obviously, we have a ton of good cheesesteak spots, but they're always one of the best. Please follow both Sam and Frankie. What are both of your handles? I don't remember people's handles off the top of my head.
Samantha Wismer.
On Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Frankie?
At Frankie Staskel.
Cool. And obviously they both have articles that come out very regularly. I mentioned them in the beginning. Sam does a lot of great coverage for the Phantoms in general. She goes to a lot of the games as well. So definitely check her out. And she also is helping me a ton with the Instagram now. So a lot of those Instagram posts are a lot because of her. So thank you so much for that. It's really helpful. So we're going to keep doing that stuff. We're going to keep growing the brand. Comment, like, subscribe. I'm doing the Don't Panic podcast with Chris Marr as well now. Still doing the Always Level Up podcast. I have an episode with Derek Settlemeyer coming up. I'm really excited about that. I want to go through his story about being the Flyers equipment manager for 26 years and how he's dealt with that and how his life. And again, his father did that too. So I'm really excited for that episode. And then I got some other stuff in the works as well. And then I'm going to continue doing gritty rants, but as we move into the summer here in the off season, I'm going to pick my topics a little bit more. We'll keep going. Again, like, subscribe. It helps us a ton. Check out the team store as well. And make sure to, again, follow our writers here. They totally deserve it. And they put a ton of work into our site, and we would not be where we are without them. So thank you for everybody to listen. And thank you. We love you guys. Even if I argue with you, it doesn't mean I don't love you. And remember,
love you too.
Remember to always stay gritty.